Right, you lot, welcome to the sixth part of this 17-part breakdown of all of my album. Bloody hell. Now, I'm trying to go in order now from what I've kind of started, because I kind of just started doing miscellaneous, but then I thought, well, it had to make sense to kind of do them in order that I wrote them. So I started with Bandage, that was technically the first song I wrote. Went off a bit with U-Turn, so I kind of jumped the shark, but then I came back and did Always Been You, which was the third song I wrote, fourth song, remember that. And then I did like cover bots. I'm trying to do the ones that I did in the first half. Reverse was the second ever song I wrote after Bandage. And I think that fact is very important when coming into this one. And I think for you to understand the breakdown of this one, you would have had to watch my lyric breakdown of Bandage, because this song is very much a sequel to Bandage, and like most sequel, it isn't as good as Bandage. I'm gonna be totally honest. But yeah. But Reverse was an important song for me to do, because I wanted to do a song called Reverse for a while, even before I started writing. It's just a song title that kind of reached out to me. And kind of that idea of reminiscing, that idea of changing time, shows if I could turn that time. It's an overdone trope in music, because it's a classic one that you could do, how you wish you could change events. And I think this is a song about me being stuck in a summer where last summer I didn't have a lot to go, because I didn't have anywhere to go. We didn't go on holiday last summer because we had puppies in the house. So we had to support them, make them grow up. We had a lot of complications, and we didn't do loads because of that kind of step back. So I had a lot of free time to actually be left with my thoughts. And I was dealing with the aftermath of this relationship at the time. I was struggling a lot. It was very difficult, because the person the band was about, the person that it was about, I kind of closed off from them. They closed off from me again. And it's how in Bandage, like, I start to realise, but it's kind of this deadly cycle of you basically not being able to describe what you have because it's so toxic and so broken, but you're not able to kind of express. You're thanking them for the bare minimum. You're coming around to the idea that actually, no, they're using you, they're making you worse off. But then you actually second guess yourself and retread that. I mean, this is like, well, you know what? I should have just never second guessed myself at all. I should have just stuck with it, even if it was toxic. And this is the kind of aftermath of that. So, yeah. So we've got, you can never be satisfied with what you have. You always catastrophize. Throw all your positives aside. Overshadow a negative. Let the bright spots hide. Forget all the highlights of things that make life alright. So I feel like no one can ever be satisfied. You always seek more in life. And that's an important thing. No one's ever content. Happily ever after does not exist. That's not the fundamentals of life. You can be happy, but still seek more. There's always, nothing can be perfect, and I think that's just a observation of life. But there's always that catastrophe. I do think you always make the worst out of the situation, and that's something that I was thinking at the time. And I let that whole let the bright spot hide. I forgot those few glimmer of moments when they would do something incredible for me and made my love justified. And I kind of noticed that I was doing that. And this was a place of insanity. And when I read back on these lyrics, I'm like, I don't agree with these words anymore. That is the problem I find with songwriting a lot of the time, because you write something down 6 or 7 months later, you disagree with it, because life change moves at such a breakneck pace that by the time you've written a song, got the instrumental, got it in the studio, released it, getting it on an album, especially if it's not going to be single, by the time you actually put it out, you're like, do I stand to this? But and the next bit is, you never appreciate what you had until it's lost. Then you understand the cost. All the waiting nights went down the drain. It's just pain. I felt that this person was ignoring me at this point, and I felt I wasted too many nights. But I could have done more with them. I could have pushed. I didn't. I didn't make them. I gave them a lot of leeway. I let them play it on their terms. I let them, because it was like this. It's very hard to like not go into fine net details, but basically, this person didn't like me at first, and I knew that was the case. It's quite obvious. So I kind of took the rejection for what it was. I struggled with it, obviously, but I still I tried. I could have done better on that front, and that was bad. But then as time progressed, actually, then they started actually liking me, and that was alien. That was bizarre. But then it was like, oh my god, I've spent all this time trying to move on, and now you're like coming back. And it's like, I feel like I didn't appreciate those nights enough when they did like me, and your mistakes made you stumble at the end of the race. Every move made is only useless, it only fades. I felt that nothing mattered. I felt that I put so much energy into this relationship and it was just gone because of reasons that weren't even, like, they were ridiculous, frankly. You reach so far in your climb, but it's useless. Can't you just change time? For a fraction of a moment, be in my prime, let the clock reverse time. So it's that idea of like, I just want to relive it one more time because I felt I came so far and I came close to something, but I held back and I let them get into my head. I let them use me, and if I did it again, then it's like, why can't I just reverse, return to the previous? I thought I was in a curve, but it's only getting worse and worse. It was worse because I didn't have clarity. It was worse because I didn't know at that point what I'd actually done. I was left clueless, I was oblivious, I was in no man's land, you know what I mean? And that was the worst bit for me, definitely. Then it took a trip down memory lane, looked through all the stains, through all the lies and the griefs and the games, was always happy at the end of the day. I'd let that be down play, just overstate non-existent issues. I kind of am lying to myself at this point, and there is a delusion, there's an insanity in this song, where I'm kind of looking into myself and I'm going, I'm literally telling myself to look through stains and to read pattern lies, grief, and games. Because I was happy somehow at the end of the day, and I was just at this point, and when I wrote Reverse, it was on a night where I couldn't breathe. I wanted to die. I wanted to take my own life those days because I could not. It was the only thing that was in my head for 24/7, and I don't exaggerate that. It was an obsession, it was insanity because I didn't know the results. So I had to try and lie to myself and say that the bad times, which were truly bad, where there were lies and when there was these U-turns and back and forth, will they, won't they shit, and all of that, and it was like, I tried to somehow in the back of my mind convince myself that that was the good part, that was the highlight, that was the good memory, and it wasn't. You lived the calm before the storm, can't I go back to warn? Why can't I just do it again? This time, though, which will does at least home near the end of the final destination, could have great preparation. At least I'd cherish every moment. It's like, if I knew the deadline, I wouldn't have been so stressed during that time, and I would have been like, okay, this is going to be a temporary thing. So this was a plead. And then we got the chorus again, and this is the rap verse at the end. You had something so tightly grip, you let it slip in that moment like dip. Let it fall right before your eyes after you really surprised, after you recognise and read through the empty promises that lie. But love transcends are always right. I need to go back and be more wise. See where overset the mark. Could save a dying spark. It works against the darks. Again, it's like, it's like at this point, I'm like, I had something so tightly gripped. I let it slip. I let it fall. The kind of you kind of third person thing is just me reflecting on my own. And it this song is a good testament to where I was at the state, and it's nowhere near my best on theme because it doesn't need to be. Reverse is a song about me so deep in insanity that I want to reverse time, that I want to change the course of events just to suit my narrative, just to give me closure. And the thing was that, and the worst part about this is when that summer ended and when the school year started again, they acted as if nothing had happened. And they could never have known what I went through. And luckily, I did have a few friends and family who were able to get me through that. And eventually I did move past it. And you look at me now and I'm so much better off without love. And that's kind of a point I do get to at some point in this album. It's like with the songs Together I've got and Persona, I actually come to the point where it's like, it's not worth it at this age. It really isn't, because nothing is permanent. It's only going to last the course of a few moments, and you're just killing yourself for a bit of time. You're stressing yourself, especially in a time where, like, exams, GCSEs, that sort of thing. That's what I want to put my mind on. I want to get myself a career. I want to kind of set myself up, and I feel like this album and this past year has taught me so much, and I would not change. Honestly, if you gave me a time machine right now, would I change any event in the past years? I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be who I am here today. And I think the person that I've become because of this, and I think this experience not only will help me in the future, but also will be testament to who I become. And I think that is the most vital thing. Reverse is a fascinating deep dive into the psyche of my mind. And these words were raw. There wasn't a forcefulness, because I wasn't even planning an album at this point. This was just a song I wrote on my own. So yeah, that was Reverse. Goodbye.